But the template is aim for perfection. We'll never get there. But if you fail, you at least land somewhere. Excellent. You aim for perfection, if you miss, you land on excellent, right? But how do you even get to that level of excellence? Are there brands that have gotten to that level of excellence? So, typically, again, I'm going to use non-technical issues to explain technical stuff. So I'm doing a research. Our company does consulting, management, structure, and we do a lot of research. So I'm telling my guys in the office, oh, tell me the top 10 most excellent companies in the world, right? And I'll say what's detail. I'm just randomly picking 3 companies because I think they're popular, they're relatable to everyone. Everyone wants a Rolls Royce, right? You want to have a Rolls Royce. Davido raised what? Over 200 million, right? In less than 2 days. And because he was trying to clear his Rolls Royce. That's the reason why he raised the money. He just went on Instagram and said, oh, you guys need to raise me 1 million each because I need to clear my Rolls Royce, right? But why is Rolls Royce such a powerful car from a technical perspective? Why does it also make the list of the top 10 most reliable work of human work of art? There's a reason why it's over 100 years company. It's the only car that has 70 to 80% of its production, right? Its inventory, things that ever left as a product, 100 years still on the road. You rarely can't see a Toyota from a 1992 Toyota model on the road. How do you have people who have cars that were made in 1938 still on the road? That's something to pay attention to, right? Why is, and yes, Boeing had the crisis, but Boeing is still by far, right? And they've come off that phoenix, they've come off that whole quagmire. They're still one of the most excellent companies in the world. As a matter of fact, they're among the only 3 companies that have 6 Sigma black belts, right? I don't know what the application of black belt would be for corporates, but they have the highest 6 Sigma certifications in the world, just next to 3M, Motorola, and Nestle, right? But what can we learn from these companies? Boeing, Rolls-Royce, and Navy SEAL. Maybe I'll come off my high horse of thinking of equipment and cars. Let's look at humans, Navy SEAL, because I'm driving somewhere with this. I'm driving towards how can you have, is there a template for building excellence? Is there a template for reliability? Especially non-technical template that we can relate to. You're going to see that as you can't draw a standard deviation. There's no mean for Navy SEAL, Boeing, Rolls-Royce. There's no correlation. There's zero standard deviation. But how do they still give the same result? They don't do the same thing. The Rolls-Royce does the car, the Boeing does jets. By the way, the Boeing also does rail, but we don't think of Boeing when we think of rail, light rail. They also do satellite equipment for space. But Navy SEAL, and we don't know how powerful this is. Now let me put this in context. Every year, over 20 to 100,000 people apply to join the Navy SEAL in the US, right? Guess what? Navy SEAL can only take not more than 200 people. So there's something about how they get people in. So I'm just telling stories, but understand the concept. You've got to keep a barrier, right? You've got to keep your bar high, because you see some of the problems we technicians have are we're trying to solve problems that HR has failed to solve. So HR gives you wrong people, and you turn your production center into a rehab to rehabilitate wrongly employed people. And it's very destructive to us. If you're a manager, you can relate, right? You're like, you really want to ask them, how did you get this job? Like, how? Did you write the same exam? Can anyone relate to this?
Yes.
Right? So sometimes the first step is to create a barrier to get in. And I use myself as a practical example. You don't bother. I still had a conversation with my parents about this 3-4 days ago about, oh, it's your cousin. He just finished school and he's looking for a job. Can you come and work in your company? I'm like, that. I've been running my company I had the opportunity to start business quite early. I'm like, running my business since 21. I've not hired people who don't make 4.5 GPA. That I don't mind hiring anybody. But if you didn't make a 4.5 GPA, let me not bother. Matter of fact, if he's too close to you, send me his CV, I'll send it to somebody else. Because you've got to create that barrier. So why is the Navy SEAL? And by the way, the Navy SEAL is the most powerful team, right? It's called Navy SEAL. It's supposed to be for water, right? But the SEAL in it is an acronym for sea, air, and land. It's the only part of the Navy that that do air, sea, and land. Let me put this in context. That the guys that took down Osama bin Laden after 10 years, after everybody's tried, FBI has tried, CIA has tried, SWAT has tried. If you watch movies, you see it. When in movies they say, let's bring in the Navy SEAL. You know that the Navy SEALs don't show up just anyhow. They brought in the Navy SEAL when they were going to get Osama bin Laden, right? They were so sure. That's what reliability is zero defects. That's really my view of reliability. No defect. It is when somebody says somebody is reliable. What does it mean? It means that you don't even need to, pardon me, but you don't even need to pray if it's reliable. Because it's just going to happen. Look, gravity is a reliable concept, 9.8 meters per second. You don't jump up and come down by God's grace. You will come down. If you go up, if you throw anything down, it will come down. It's natural. And it has to be at that point. So these Navy SEAL guys understand reliability so much that they were so sure that it wasn't trial and error. They weren't trained to do trial and error. Their error rate was almost zero. So when they knew they were going to get Osama, now this man is the most dangerous man on earth. He's actually the most dangerous man of all time, right? You know what the first they requested? If the Oval Office could watch them live while they capture, you have to be sure to say, let my president watch me, let's go on IG Live and we'll capture him. Because there's no second place. You don't want to embarrass yourself in front of the world. But that's how, why they were going. But you see, my point is, the first thing the Navy SEAL got right is not the training. Of course, training is very tedious. First, you have to do, every day they do 200 push-ups in 1 minute. That's a lot. If you ever work out, that's a lot. That's literally almost impossible. But the first thing they do is they put a barrier to get in. You've got to have the 130 IQ. IQ of 130. Average human being is 90 to 110. If you're above 110, you're a genius. You've got to come in and do 200 push-ups. So you've got to have that high barrier that gets people in. And oil and gas grew so big in Nigeria, not because they just discovered oil, but because oil and gas had the best set of people who worked in oil and gas. Am I right? Just by how they recruited back in the days. You've got to be the best graduating student in your school to even try to come in. Am I right most of the time? So you've got to have and I'm assuming that we're talking to different sets of people here, the managers, even the MDs who make decisions, the corporate guys, the management guys, and even the operation guys. If you're the operation guy, you've got to make your own bar so high. Right? So, the Rolls Royce, the Boeing, the Rolex, Nestle, 3M, Bank of America, the newest in that league, the Amazon, these are the world's most reliable firms. I mean, we don't even know how reliable Amazon is till we realize that all of us here, right, our data in the world is on Amazon, AWS. Yeah. Look, we all have iPhones. 1 billion iPhones are currently in circulation. They run on AWS, right? The Google Drive run on AWS. That's how reliable. You've got to be reliable. See, when we used to back up hard drives, we used to buy 3 hard drives just in case one crashes. Have I talked to somebody here? My point is, there's something they all have in common, and I'll make it easy by an acronym. It's called the 7S, and I'm just going to run us through the 7S real quick. The 7S is the fundamental framework. I need to give credit to who is due. It's not even my 7S. It's years of research, 1,500 years. It's actually called the McKinsey 7S. In consulting, we know that McKinsey is sort of like the backer of consulting, right? PwC, KPMG, McKinsey, Bain and Associates, BCG. But the point is, they came to a conclusion that all great teams, all great companies, all great systems seem to have the same template. Whether they know it knowingly or unknowingly, it's like you walk into any great company, you find that they have the 7S. So just use this as a wake-up call to ask which of the 7S are you very good at. So you cannot build a great reliable team, or a great reliable department, or a reliable product as your organization who produces product without having the 7S. So I'm just going to quickly run us through it. The first one is called shared values. A team is not a group of people with equal skill. A team is not a group of people with equal skill. A team is a group of people with equal commitment. Commitment to a shared value. If it was a smaller team, I'll put people on the spot and I'll ask you, oh, do you know the shared value of your company? and I think Jonathan asked that question at some point. A lot of people work in companies, they don't even know the shared value. In your small units, is there a central ideology that guides everybody? Let's even put it back home. 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, I say this is what guides us. I mean, America in its prime was binded by what they call the American dream. You can be anything you want to be, and to symbolize that they put the Statue of Liberty, which is basically liberty. Right? Until you can create a company or a department where we have same shared value. When if things go wrong, we come back to that shared value and say, no, this can happen because this is our shared value. Just this one went viral on the internet and it was so interesting because I have a backend story to it. If anybody follows the hotel losing his brother and all that, and then that data shows up yesterday. I don't know if everybody saw that viral video. But that data shows up in a room full of all the most powerful Northerners are there. And Bola Tinubu was also there, and that data shows up. And when that data shows up, everybody stands up, right? And Tinubu bows to greet that data. They don't even know how powerful that data is in the Northern Caliphate, but he stretches his hand to shake everybody there, and not a single person shakes him back. Like, everybody dressed back and says, I'd rather not shake you because, like, you get the concept, right? Like, we shouldn't shake you because you're not our mates type of thing. But I work with that firm, and I've seen that firm, by the way, they're the only people in Nigeria who's built 4 generations of wealth. 4 generations of wealth. Dangote is in his 1st generation. M. Kabela was first. I'm not sure how he did to the 2nd, but the truth about it is, there's something they've gone around, and I remember this one time years ago, and I was talking to one of the datatars, and he talked about shared value. And you'd hear them say stuff like, we don't do this in our family. We don't do this in our family. What is that thing you don't do in your firm? Because you've got to have something you don't do. Like, we don't hire certain people. Like, we don't talk in certain way. Like, we don't compromise in certain things. That's what shared value is. Am I communicating with everyone here? Yes. Second thing is staffing. There's nothing more depressing than trying to discuss 4x4 ideas with 2x2 minds. Right? And it happens a lot in Nigeria, right? Where it frustrates the best of our kind, and this is why Nigerians don't have the best politicians, because the people they know how frustrating it is to get in and come out. Right? But my point is, you've got to have a framework for staffing. And of recent, I've learned to use data. Right, and I really wish the next TMI would bring in a lot more non-technical people in the company, because if you look at the way Nigerian technical organizations are structured, projectized technicals, the guys who sit on C-suites, right, C-suites, the C-suites are the corporate guys, the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, the CTO, 90% of the guys on the C-suite who make the decisions that affect the company, none of them are technical. I don't know if anybody noticed. All the guys, none of them are, and they're making decisions for you. Is that what's happening in Nigeria, where you have youth conference with the average age of people there are in their 60s and they're discussing youth. I think of recent somebody showed something in Saudi Arabia, the women's conference, and there was no woman in the women's conference. Right? And that's really what happens sometimes. Right? You've got to have data. So of recent, I've learned something. There are 7 billion people on earth, but only 16 personality types by sociology. Out of that 16 personality types, there's certain personality types that don't do well in certain roles. So don't bother. So data has to be able to, I don't know if anyone of recent done very multinational interviews, right? Once they do as a stage, they tell you to do a personality test. They use that to actually determine whether you can fit into that role. Some people don't have patience. Some people by their personality are not articulate enough to pay attention to detail. So they're not going to knot the bolts right, they're not going to dot the T's across the I's. And those are the main triggers, right, for these issues. I see design errors all the time. You go to a world-class hotel and just very simple things, you see design errors. I know that this is design error just comes from no attention to detail, just basic stuff. So it's a personality thing. Some people are more critical than others. Don't we have friends who are critical, who spot little errors? They do better as analysts, they do better as process engineers. You can't bring people who are just dreamers. Dreamers don't pay attention to dreamers. That is not wrong with being a dreamer. They make the best CEOs, they make the best inventors, they dream things. But there are people who don't have to be dreamers. There are people who are doers. There are people who are thinkers. So staffing is really about that. Now let's move to skill. The skill that all great teams have, or let me put this in your context. So a skill you must have as an individual. 3 things. 1, technical skill. I'm sure you already know that this sales session is about technical skill, but it's a triad. It's a triangle with 3 sides, and one side is just the technical. So what's the verse 2? Because, and just as feedback for someone here who wants to be ambitious enough to grow up your career ladder in reliability and technicality, the truth about it is that the same skill set you need to build technicality is the same skill set that makes you not become very high up there. Let me put this in context. You can be too technical to succeed. Have you met people who are too smart to succeed? It's like playing basketball. You've got to be tall to play in the NBA, right? I don't stand a chance to play in the NBA. I don't. I'm not up to 6 feet. But guess what? I can also be too tall to play in the NBA. That's what people don't tell us. So you have cousins that is tall. I say, oh, why don't you play basketball? You're tall. But you can be too tall. And there's a reason why Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and all these guys, right, are not pretty very tall. Right? So the technical skills gets you into reliability. It gets into your industry, gets into your unit. But if you've got to grow, you've got to develop the other 2 skills. And one of those skills is leadership skill. So technical skill, then leadership skill, right? Because, and we don't realize how bad this is till there's an opportunity at the top, right? And your supervisor will let you go. You know why? Because if he lets you go, that space becomes vacant. It's a dilemma people are in, right? There's an opportunity, but I don't think I want you to go. Because if you go, this seat, that's because you haven't built leadership. You haven't built delegation, right? So people can't let you go. I wish I was recorded and told a practical story of a crisis that happened that is connected to even the biggest crisis in Nigeria, political crisis, which is June 12th. There was something about this thing of someone was working with someone, and then there was an opportunity at the top for someone to be a minister, and the person was a journalist, and the person who the company was working for wouldn't let him go. So let me put this question like, I'm president, and you're someone